Hi, Dr. Alex here, and great news! A brand new audiobook has just been released. It is Red Sonya, The Shadow of the Vulture. Released on the only audiobook outlet worth mentioning, really, Spotify, which has the biggest reach in terms of downloads of any audiobook reseller I know. So, as I say, none of the others are really worth mentioning. The audiobook has a fantastic cover, which you can see here, and is read by my good thespian friend Jimmy Jones, and also aided by the excellent additional readings by Ella Dumitru. Now, obviously, you will know Jimmy Jones from the previous Robert E. Howard audiobooks I've released, the 2 Conan ones, and you'll know the name Ella Dumitru from the 3 audiobooks I released, which were written by me, in the case of The Doctor Season 12 and The Doctor Season 13, and written by me and my co-authors in the case of The Doctor Season 14, in all of which Ella Dumitru read multiple characters with unparalleled skill and aplomb. As always, I'll read the back cover blurb from Red Sonya, The Shadow of the Vulture, to give you a good idea of what the audiobook is all about. This is, of course, the back cover blurb from Spotify, because as I've mentioned many times now, that's the only audiobook reseller worth a damn. Red Sonya, The Shadow of the Vulture, by Robert E. Howard. This is the only novel featuring the warrior Red Sonya by an author whose life was cut tragically short. And yet, in his 30 years on this earth, he completed far more worthy, notable, and numerous fantasy works than some modern authors of far greater years. Howard's fantastic fiction continues to inspire to this day. This reading has been produced by Alexander Leiths with the aid of his thespian friend Jim E. Jones, doing his utmost to capture the spirit of his near namesake, and features the unparalleled vocal talents of Ella Dumitru. Well, as I say, that gives you a great idea of what the book's all about and what this audiobook features. And as always, it only really leaves me now to leave you with the audio-free sample to give you a good taster of what the audiobook actually sounds like. And so to all my watchers, subscribers and viewers, I hope you rush out and get this amazing new audiobook from Spotify. And until the next video, whatever that may be, to all of you, enjoy this free sample and take care.
On a gun turret on the threatened wall, leaning on his great sword and meditatively twisting his mustache, Gottfried von Kalmbach watched a Transylvanian gunner being carried off the wall, his brains oozing from a hole in his head. A Turkish matchlock had spoken too near the walls. The field pieces of the Sultan were barking like deep-toned dogs, knocking chips off the battlements. The Janissaries were advancing, kneeling, firing, reloading as they came on. Bullets glanced from the crenelles and whined off venomously into space. One flattened against Gottfried's hauberk, bringing an outraged grunt from him. Turning toward the abandoned gun, he saw a colorful, incongruous figure bending over the massive breach. It was a woman, dressed as von Kalmbach had not seen even the dandies of France dressed. She was tall, splendidly shaped, but lithe. From under a steel cap escaped rebellious tresses that rippled red gold in the sun over her compact shoulders. High boots of cordovan leather came to her mid-thighs, which were cased in baggy breeches. She wore a shirt of fine Turkish mesh mail tucked into her breeches. Her supple waist was confined by a flowing sash of green silk, into which were thrust a brace of pistols and a dagger, and from which depended a long Hungarian saber. Over all was carelessly thrown a scarlet cloak. This surprising figure was bending over the cannon, sighting it in a manner betokening more than a passing familiarity at a group of Turks who were wheeling a carriage gun just within range. "Hey, Red Sonya!" shouted a man-at-arms, waving his pike. "Give 'em hell, my lass!"
"Trust me, dog brother,"
she retorted as she applied the glowing match to the vent.
"but I wish my mark was Roxalana's."
A terrific detonation drowned her words, and a swirl of smoke blinded everyone on the turret as the terrific recoil of the overcharged cannon knocked the firer flat on her back. She sprang up like a spring rebounding and rushed to the embrasure, peering eagerly through the smoke, which, clearing, showed the ruin of the gun crew. The huge ball, bigger than a man's head, had smashed full into the group clustered about the soccer, and now they lay on the torn ground, their skulls blasted by the impact, or their bodies mangled by the flying iron splinters from their shattered gun. A cheer went up from the towers, and the woman called Red Sonya yelled with a sincere joy and did the steps of a Cossack dance. Gottfried approached, eyeing in open admiration the splendid swell of her bosom beneath the pliant mail, the curves of her ample hips and rounded limbs. She stood as a man might stand, booted legs braced wide apart, thumbs hooked into her girdle. But she was all woman. She was laughing as she faced him, and he noted with fascination the dancing, sparkling lights and changing colors of her eyes. She raked back her rebellious locks with a powder-stained hand, and he wondered at the clear, pinky whiteness of her firm flesh where it was unstained. "Why did you wish for the Sultana Roxolana for a target, my girl?" he asked.
Because she's my sister, the slut,
answered Sonya. At that instant, a great cry thundered over the walls, and the girl started like a wild thing, ripping out her blade in a long flash of silver in the sun.
That bellow,
she cried.
The Janissaries.
Gottfried was already on his way to the embrasures. He too had heard before the terrible soul-shaking shout of the charging Janissaries. Suleiman meant to waste no time on the city that barred him from helpless Europe. He meant to crush its frail walls in one storm. The Bashi Bazuki, the irregulars, died like flies to screen the main advance, and over heaps of their dead, the Janissaries thundered against Vienna. In the teeth of cannonade and musket volley they surged on, crossing the moats on scaling ladders laid across, bridge-like. Whole ranks went down as the Austrian guns roared, but now the attackers were under the walls, and the cumbrous balls whirred over their heads to work havoc in the rear ranks. The Spanish matchlock men, firing almost straight down, took ghastly toll, but now the ladders gripped the walls, and the chanting madmen surged upward. Arrows whistled, striking down the defenders. Behind them, the Turkish field pieces boomed, careless of injury to friend as well as foe. Gottfried, standing at an embrasure, was overthrown by a sudden terrific impact. A ball had smashed the Merlin, braining half a dozen defenders. Gottfried rose, half-stunned, out of the debris of masonry and huddled corpses. He looked down into an uprushing waste of snarling, impassioned faces where eyes glared like mad dogs and blades glittered like sunbeams on water. Bracing his feet wide, he heaved up his great sword and lashed down. His jaw jutted out, his mustache bristled. The 5-foot blade caved in steel caps and skulls, lashing through uplifted bucklers and iron shoulder pieces. Men fell from the ladders, their nerveless fingers slipping from the bloody rungs, but they swarmed through the breach on either side of him.
Masters, mistresses, the Doctor requires materials in order to maintain the TARDIS and ensure continued functionality. He similarly requires carbon-based comestibles to sustain his own biological functions and existence. Master would never say this, but he requires aid beyond that supplied by this unit in order to acquire these. To aid the Doctor in his various tasks and creations, this can be most effectively achieved via Patreon or Substack subscriptions, or through donations directly to PayPal. Or if you desire physical goods in return for your contributions, written accounts of my travels with the Doctor are also available on Amazon. Links are in the description below. Thank you, masters, mistresses.